Well, Melissa, it's finally here. What we've been talking about for days now, the big unveiling of a new product. And you know, there's a lot of excitement around this because this new product is coming to you on behalf of two different brands. It's on behalf of Winchester and Browning as well. And that's a really big deal. When you think about that, you've got Winchester, you know, the American legend, and Browning, the best there is. These companies have been working hand in hand for over 100 years now, and they've teamed up before, but they've teamed up again to bring an incredible product that actually does fill a lot of white space in the market.
And what I like about it is they didn't just come out with this a couple months ago. They have been working on this for years, and they have found a need, something that hunters need, something that long-range shooters need, and they have filled that void, and I am so excited to launch it.
That's right, and on the range as well. I mean, this is also for just long-range shooting. I mean, this thing fills a lot of different voids. So I personally have been primed and ready to talk about this product since I first laid eyes on it back in the early fall. And I know you've had the chance to shoot it as well.
I have, and honestly, the results were incredible. It was such an amazing cartridge to use in the field and to see those results, and everyone around me was like, what is she using?
That's right. So I've been primed. Hopefully everybody else at home has been primed that's taking a look at this. I'm excited to unveil it, but I'm not going to do it. I want you to be the one to do it. So drum roll, please. Here we go.
Well, I think we've talked enough. Now it's time to let you see the results for yourself. The new 6.8 Western.
Ready, Aaron? Send it. Impact.
When people think of the perfect long-range rifle cartridge, they want many key features. Good precision, flat trajectory, large downrange energy, and manageable recoil. There's many good calibers out there that do many of these things, but none of them combine all into one.
So when you take two companies like Winchester, who is a leader in innovation, and then you got Browning, the best there is, you've got a lot of mental horsepower there to come up with one of the best new cartridges possible. We got our engineering teams together first, and we just started talking about, look, again, what are those products that are out there today, and what are they missing? And then how can we optimize all these characteristics, such as a short action, heavy bullets, long BC bullets, accuracy. You know, one of the first things for this cartridge was how do both of these teams make the rifle system as well as the ammunition system the most accurate we could.
Why a 6.8 Western? When you look at any new cartridge development, wherever there's a need, then there's an opportunity to fill that need. There's a lot of cartridges out there, and some may say there's even too many, but there's always room for improvement. As powders advance, as case design advances, as bullet design advances, you always want to improve. And today's hunter is becoming more and more technical. He's becoming more and more savvy. Then really the 6.8 Western is a continuation, is an advancement of things that we've learned over the last couple of decades since the WSM.
This cartridge has been designed to have a very tight throw, so as that bullet is in the throat and as the cartridge ignites, it has very little ability to rotate or to cant, and it enters that rifling perfectly straight. And we've found in our testing that if it starts straight, it stays out straight.
All these years we had finally achieved what we were after, and the key feature in that was to shorten up that shoulder and shorten up the overall length of the cartridge so that we could get longer, sleeker, and heavy for caliber bullets to really drive that G1 BC higher and higher to get the flattest possible.
It's not overkill for whitetail, plenty for elk, it's perfect for mule deer. So across the board, really the 6.8 Western is really the most versatile caliber that's out there, and it applies and it appeals to every customer out there for any big game hunting that you're going to be doing.
Oh, mule deer, baby, right there for the 6.8 Western.
Holy cow, what a bull.
Dude, look at this old bull. Oh my goodness, I'm just shaking. I mean, the 6.8 hammered him. It was like a spin
We good? We ready? Here
Yes.
we go. Wham. So I think it's safe to say that the build-up is over, but Ben, the hype is just beginning because we've just unveiled the all-new product, the 6.8 Western. Now we got the boxes in front of us, we got some cartridges and everything, some bullets. Before we get into that, let's talk about, in general, when you teamed up Winchester and Browning, what were you guys trying to accomplish with the 6.8 Western?
Well, you know, we looked at a lot of different cartridges out there today, particularly new ones with the, you know, more people out there shooting long range for targets or even long range hunting. And many of those cartridges were really built around long range shooting and not necessarily hunting. They've transcended into hunting and they're great cartridges, say something like 6.5 PRC or 6.5 Creedmoor. Those are the kinds of products and cartridges that we kind of looked at, but we thought, okay, how can we build something for that long range shooter, long range hunter that's from the ground up for hunting? And really, is there anything missing? Because in our opinion, some of those other cartridges being built as a long-range shooting cartridge first, the bullet weights weren't quite what we would like them to be for, say, an elk. So we kind of looked at that. I mean, I know you shoot 270 WSM. That's another one where it's kind of that tweener, where is a 150 grain bullet enough for a big game critter? Certainly, many people out there, you know, out there watching this have killed big game animals with 150 grain bullets or even 140 grain. But those historic 180 grain, 30 cal bullets, those are, you know, perfect for big game animals. No one will argue and question whether or not those bullets can take big game. And so that's some of the things that we talked about working with Browning as well. You know, on the gun side of things, is they're seeing a lot of guns being sold for the long range hunting and shooting. And you know, this was our way of working together of, okay, what guys do we feel can work best for these long range hunters?
And that's exactly how I see it. As a hunter myself, the way I look at it is, you know, you guys have got these bullets that are pushing high ballistic coefficients. So for long range, we're gonna have efficiency and proficiency, but then you've also been able to kind of fill that tweener void to where you can fit it into a short action rifle. So what does that mean for me on the side of the mountain? Lighter, smaller gun overall, allows me to get up a little faster, down a little easier. So there's a ton of benefits that you got. I mean, you really did fill white space. I mean, there was a glaring gap between those long-range shooting rifles and those larger 30 cal and above hunting rifles, and this 6.8 Western slides right in the middle right there.
Yeah, the 6.8 Western does a lot of things. One, it's not a belted magnum, so belted magnums sometimes can be knocked for their accuracy. It's a short action, which oftentimes, you know, it has accuracy attributes that are much better than some of those longer belted magnums, as well as recoil. So you're not a 300 PRC type recoil, you're actually probably less than even a 30-06 recoil. So a big game cartridge with manageable recoil and heavy for caliber bullets. So as you said, those high BC bullets, we're pushing 175 grain bullets in the Browning product and 165 in the Winchester with energies, you know, comparable to, if not greater than, say, 300 Win Mag at 500 yards. So, you know, that's obviously those bullet weights and those kinds of energies are perfect for big game animals.
Let's talk a little bit about what it actually is, because when you see 6.8, you know, some people don't correlate that right away. So it's actually a 277, is that right?
That's correct. So 6.8 is a 277 cal bullet, so like 270 WSM, 270 Win. Those products use a 277 cal bullet, and typically they only go up to about 150 grains. And that's because the twist rates of those rifle systems were only around a 1 in 10. So you start getting heavier, it's really hard to stabilize those bullets. So, you know, building a cartridge from the ground up for that long range situation, it wasn't the case back, you know, 10, 15 years ago. They didn't think about 500 to 1,000 yard, you know, performance. Now we can.
And with the partnership with Browning, you guys were able to figure out together okay, how do we stabilize this? We got to increase the twist rate in the barrel. So you up the twist rate and all of a sudden you've got a brand new caliber that's being born.
Yeah, I mean, we were bouncing things back and forth between us and them. You know, we're constantly sending them samples. They're testing out guns. We're trying to figure out what kind of twist rates are going to work best, what kind of bullet weights are going to work best to really kind of hone in on that perfect system, because, you know, a big piece of this needs to be accuracy as well, right? I mean, just because you have a high ballistic coefficient bullet doesn't necessarily mean you have an accurate bullet.
Right.
It doesn't mean you have an accurate system. So for us to be able to, you know, tout this as a true long-range capable product, it had to be accurate.
Yep. So when I start looking at the bullet itself and I look at the cartridge, I mean, you can tell right away it's a long-range bullet, right? What you guys have done, you've been able to take the shoulders on that cartridge and drop them back basically on the 270 and elongate that bullet, is that right?
Yeah, so we're able to push that shoulder back a bit from where you would see on a WSM, 270 WSM, but that allows for that overall loaded length to be much longer.
So let's talk a little bit about what we've got in the specific lines, because we've got both Browning and Winchester. Let's start on the Winchester side. Talk me through what you got.
Okay, so on the Winchester side, really the flagship product off the get-go will be the AccuBond long range. So that long range, Expedition long range product will be a 165 grain bonded bullet, polymer tip, boat tail, super long. You're gonna have tons of energy at 500 and beyond. We also will have a 170 grain ballistic silver tip. So that's one thing we didn't really mention. I mean, we've been focusing on, and we did focus on in the development, big game critters, but this is also a great cartridge for whitetail. You know, this isn't overkill in terms of, you start to look at some of the other cartridges that people go out and shoot big game with. This particular bullet weight, this particular, you know, rifle system is going to be great for whitetail. The 170 grain BST is perfect for whitetail.
Yep.
And then finally, we're going to have a match product as well. So again, for those long range shooters, or, you know, for folks who are just wanting to go out and get ready for hunting and they want to practice on steel and they don't want to shoot their hunting ammo, we're going to have this match product. It's a 170 grain match.
Okay, cool. I can tell you firsthand, I've used the Expedition Big Game Long Range. She works. And that's all I'm gonna say about that, is she worked.
Yeah, we certainly got it out there this fall. I mean, I think we've probably taken over 30 large critters with it, and so it definitely works.
So let's talk about Browning a little bit. Obviously, we've got a product in the Browning line as well.
Yeah, so we'll have a 175 grain Long Range Pro Hunter. This is the heaviest bullet that we're going to be able to offer right now in 6.8 Western. Again, 175 grains. That's pushing right up there towards that, you know, historic 180 30 cal bullet weight, you know. So it's where we were trying to get, and you know, we may see down the road bullets a little heavier than that. We'll see. I mean, the twist rates on these rifles will, you know, depend. The Browning rifle is a 1 and 7.5. The Winchester rifles are going to be 1 and 8. But you know, sky's the limit really with 6.8 Western.
So if you had to take and kind of sum up the 6.8 Western, and who should look at the 6.8 Western as, you know, something that's going to increase, you know, their ability to reach out long range or just be more effective in the field overall? Who's looking at this?
Well, I mean, I think there's a lot of people. Like when I look at it, you know, if someone from the Midwest who thinks, okay, sometimes I might try to go out west and I want to have a rifle that if I'm here in the Midwest is going to work on whitetail, but hey, if I go out west and I'm going to shoot an elk or a mule deer or something a little bigger, I want something that can work for that as well. 6.8 Western is that exactly. You know, that's one of the big feature and benefits we were looking for when we developed 6.8 Western. In addition to that, it's the guys out west. If you're a Western hunter, this is perfect. I mean, that's why we named it 6.8 Western, because it's like, look, we're looking for something that can, you know, reach out there and touch it from a long range, whether that means you're shooting steel or you're shooting critters.
So there you have it, the 6.8 Western, an all-around caliber for Midwest whitetail all the way out to big game in the West, on the range, in the field. It serves a ton of different purposes. The hype is just beginning.
Yeah, baby, 6.8 Western right there. First mule deer kill with a 6.8 Western. 325 with the 6.8.
Impact.
The 6.8 right there. He's down, baby. Yes. That 6.8 just put a number on her. Dude, look at this old bull. Man, that 6.8 did the trick. Look at this. In velvet. 6.8 Western. Yes.
Anyone that wants a good shooting gun with little to no recoil, I mean, we've shot this out to 600-700 yards and it's shooting flat as flat can be. I mean, we are completely sold on the new 6.8 Western.
Beautiful, nice, mature deer in the 6.8 Western. Well, I'm pretty sure the proof is in the pudding. It worked amazing. Ben and Casey were just talking about the 6.8 Western and why it was developed, but I'm here with Kyle, the Director of Product Development, and we're gonna go over a little bit on how this was made and the things that worked, the things that didn't work, and really get in the weeds on the technical aspects of the 6.8 Western.
Sure, yeah, so 6.8 Western, so we wanted to build that ultimate powerhouse, that long range hunting and shooting caliber. So, you know, we dug deep into all the great cartridges that are out there. What do they do great? And now take all those features and benefits and put it into 6.8 Western that provided all those different performance attributes. And you know, there's a lot of different features and benefits that go into 6.8 Western. To get to where we were, we had to start with a lot of different cartridges that fell off the table pretty quick. You know, whether they didn't have sufficient powder capacity or the bullet weights weren't heavy enough, or we couldn't generate the twist rates that we wanted to generate the overall downrange accuracy that we needed. So we very quickly eliminated those, and we did them really mathematically, you know, through modeling, three-dimensional software. We try to use technology anywhere we can, and we did that with 6.8 Western. Very early on, we engaged our partners at Winchester Repeating Arms and Browning Firearms and had them engaged very early on. They knew exactly what we were planning from the ammunition side, but a great ammunition design doesn't go anywhere without a great rifle design.
Absolutely, and I think what's nice is, for me as a hunter, this is something that's long range. It has the knockdown power. It's great for people who just enjoy long range shooting as well, but you guys really have taken the best of two worlds and combined it into one.
Right, yeah, exactly. So we took a lot of the best features of the Winchester short mag cartridges, right? Because they're known for their efficiency in powder charge weights, the short action design, a lot of energy potential there. But then we went a step further. We said, okay, we want that long range energy to be even higher. We want that recoil to be reduced even more. How do we do that? How do we achieve that? How do we get those bullet weights up, right? We wanted to achieve that downrange energy. Well, the way you do that is you get into those traditional 30 caliber bullet weights. Well, how do you do that in something like a 6.8 or 277 diameter bullet like we did? Well, we wanted those high BCs, that, you know, that G1 ballistic coefficient no lower than 0.6. You know, you can't get that in typical 30 caliber bullets, but we knew we wanted to do that here. So very quickly we could get through the modeling and the design aspects of it. We knew we needed to stick with that 35-degree shoulder from a Winchester short mag, but we pulled it back. We shortened it up about 80 thousandths of an inch. That allowed us to get those longer, sleeker bullets, sleek boat tails, heavier weights for the caliber. That drove to that high energy, that flat trajectory, and a lot of what you got to experience firsthand on some of the hunts you were on.
And that's the thing, is when you're going out there and you're using a 165 or 170 grain bullet and you're seeing the devastating results, I mean, that's gotta feel pretty good to you guys. You did the 3D modeling, now you're seeing the results coming back and people like me going, that was incredible.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal for someone in my role, where I get to work with my team and work with our partners on the firearm side and develop these products and try to think about the consumer. You know, what does the consumer need? What does the consumer want? Then get to do all that modeling work, do all the things we all went to school for, right? To understand the science behind it, then implement it, then hand it off to someone like yourself to go out and try it and have success. I mean, it's a perfect situation.
And this wasn't created overnight. This has been years in the making. Tell me a little bit about what went wrong, what went right to get it to this point?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're about 2.5 years from start to finish on something like this, and there's some folks out there that probably say, well, it's not that much different than a Winchester short mag. How does that take 2.5 years? But it's not that simple, right? It's not only the empirical modeling and making sure the performance is there, it's also the manufacturability, right? I mean, we're not trying to design this and go make 50 of them. We want to go make 1 million, right, at a time, and that's the key too. That's where a lot of that long lead time takes in, because we've got to have the performance there, but we've got to have the repeatability to make every one of them the first one, just like the last one.
Right, and that's key. I mean, accuracy. You want it where, yes, this is long range, 500 yards, but you want it to be very precise at 500-600 yards. That's the key here, and you guys have accomplished that.
That's right, and you hit on a key point there when we talked about that 2.5 years of development. That was part of the challenge. You know, at one point, we had the cartridge working from an energy and downrange perspective standpoint, but the accuracy wasn't there. The precision and the grouping wasn't there. That's where we partnered real heavily with our firearms teams, and we actually ended up making some throat geometry changes, and we'll get into all the technical details maybe later, but we had to do that. We had to create some new geometries, somewhat unheard of in the design, to be able to achieve the accuracy we needed on these really long .277 caliber bullets that didn't exist before a cartridge like this.
And that's what blows my mind, is you've got two big companies like this coming together. An innovation like this, honestly, I think sometimes can only happen when you have enough brilliant minds all coming together to solve problems and come up with new solutions.
That's right. No, one single brain can't come up with an answer like this. It takes that collaboration and the time.
Well, we sure do appreciate it. As a hunter, as a long-range shooter, this is incredible. The 6.8 Western, we've learned so much about it. Thank you for your time, and there's going to be much more to come.
The 6.8 Western is an innovative cartridge built to meet the demanding needs of long-range shooting and long-range hunting. The aerodynamic design of this pointed, long, sleek boat-tail bullets offer excellent long-range accuracy and flat trajectory. Winchester and Browning offer bullets with high ballistic coefficients that are constructed for optimal terminal performance on big game animals at a wide variety of distances. Compared to other popular cartridges, the 6.8 Western delivers significant advantages. Heavier bullet weights, more energy, less recoil, long, heavy bullets, and offered in short-action rifle platform. The 6.8 Western, a Winchester and Browning innovation in long-range shooting and long-range hunting.
What an incredible day. It has been so much fun launching the 6.8 Western for all to see. I mean, I'm just so proud to be a part of this, and I know everyone that's had a piece of this, they're just as proud.
Absolutely. I'm proud as well. You know, it's not often that a product of this magnitude gets introduced into the market that truly is going to make waves. So it's super exciting to see. The other thing that really I think is incredible is when you talk to the product engineers and the teams behind the 6.8 Western, you realize the pride and the passion that they put into developing a product like this.
Well, and it's been 2 years in the making. And when you take two iconic companies like Browning and Winchester and you put their minds together, this is the type of products that you can come up with to fill voids that are needed.
And you know, the good news is I don't think we've even scratched the surface on the amount of content and the amount of information that we're going to be bringing forward for the 6.8 Western. So we've got a lot more coming your way. You're primed. Stay tuned. Hi everybody, I'm Casey Kiefer and welcome to the 6.8 Western Roundtable discussion that we're going to have today here on behalf of both Winchester and Browning. I'm joined by Ben Frank and Kyle Massinelli. Guys, I've got to tell you, I've been looking forward to this conversation probably more than any conversation that I've had throughout the time that we've been doing these videos. You know, because I've got both of you guys in the same spot, which I feel like is making the lights flicker in the room because we've got a whole lot of knowledge and information that we're about to discuss as it pertains to the 6.8 Western. So I think we're going to keep it laid back and we're going to give everybody a little bit of an inside look in kind of what was going on behind the scenes as you guys sought to develop a brand new cartridge in the 6.8 Western. So I think, you know, first and foremost, where I'd like to start, and maybe we'll start with you, Kyle, is you know, what's it like to take on a project like this, and how does this all get started, and how does everything kind of come about?
Yeah, so I mean, it's the ultimate task for an engineer, right? I mean, it's have a problem statement and then now go solve it. And it's the ultimate thing you want to do in that type of role, right? So this one was no different than others, but the boundaries were a little wider, right? We wanted to develop a new cartridge. We knew it had to be long range specific, right? But we wanted it to be just as equally well at long range hunting and long range shooting both. And that was the key in the whole thing. And so it was kind of a little bit blank sheet of paper, but yet had all these, you know, bullet points we had to meet. And that was the fun part from an engineering perspective, is blank sheet of paper, hit these tasks and go.
And this isn't something that's like a simple line extension. This isn't like, okay, we've been making this forever, we're just going to improve upon. I mean, this is literally the creation of a brand new cartridge. So, you know, you mentioned an engineer's dream is you start with a problem. I'm assuming someone like Ben is the one that brings you that problem.
We like to be problem makers for Kyle. So, you know, we look at different cartridges all the time that are out there now. Like, for instance, we're going to be building 6.5 PRC. You know, that comes from us looking at, you know, just what consumers want, what they need, but also what's missing. And, you know, my favorite part of this job is I was once an engineer, so I know all those tasks that some of that Kyle's crew has to go through. But now from the marketing side, we can come from, you know, way out in left field and say, hey man, we need you to make this with, you know, next to no boundaries, and where can you go with it, you know? And that's what's cool about something new. I know sometimes some of our expectations are probably a little high, but that's how you come up with cool stuff like 6.8 Western.
So where do we start then? So, you know, like I said, this is not a line extension. This is literally a brand new caliber. You're the one bringing the problem. What did you look for specifically in the creation of the 6.8 Western? Like, what was your starting point?
Yeah, so, you know, it goes back with us working with Browning firearms as well, and us looking at just different cartridges that are out there for long range shooting and long range hunting. And over the last few years, we continue to see more and more people just jumping into that long range shooting. And, you know, with that, people are looking for high performance cartridges that are going to have those capabilities out beyond those yardages. And so we're like, well, you know, we looked at things like 6.5 Creedmoor, for instance. 6.5 Creedmoor now is one of our largest selling cartridges that we build. And that's happened rather quickly. But there's a lot of things about it, and you can probably attest to it. It's like, at first it started out as long range shooting, then everyone's shooting deer with it. Next thing you know, people are trying to shoot elk with it. And some people are having great success, but even on the ammo side, we're thinking, man, I don't know if we can, I mean, for instance, we don't usually put elk on a 6.5 Creedmoor box, just because we don't feel comfortable marketing it that way. We know it'll work, we know we can build things that can make it work, but is it the most ideal situation? And we go to Kyle and we say, hey man, you know, that's where we're at with 6.5 Creedmoor. You got 270 Win out there that, you know, 150 grain bullet. Is it enough? 270 WSM, is it enough to be considered a big game cartridge or even long range? And we're like, we need something, something's missing there. And that's when we go to Kyle and even folks like yourself and say, look, here's what we're thinking. Is there really a gap here? And we felt that there was, but you know, you always in your own circle, you know, you think what you got and what you're working on is gonna work and it's gonna be great, but you know, you gotta talk to folks like you guys to find out if we're on the right track.
Well, that's what it sounds like, you know, from what I've seen anyway, is you've had kind of this rapid transition of, man, these long range shooting calibers like a 6.5, people are saying, hey, this extends my range when I go into the hunting, you know, into a hunting scenario, into the field. So I'm just going to take this same setup, this same rig, and I'm going to translate that over into hunting, which has its limitations, right? So you guys look at that, you identify that, you see that there's a need there, and then you formulate the problems of, okay, we're starting from scratch. We're not going to improve upon a 6.5. We're not going to mimic a 270. There truly is some room there in the middle to develop a brand new product that's pushing the high ballistic coefficients. It's got the bullet weights that you need to be effective downrange. So, you know, that's, I guess, where it falls on you and your team, Kyle. And where do the problems and the issues come in? Or, you know, what's that like when you guys start with that blank sheet of paper? You're trying to fill all the problems and answer all the questions that they brought.
Yeah, so I mean, you hit on it spot on. So if we talk about like the long range hunting aspect of it, right? So the 30 caliber bullets, I mean, no one's going to argue that 30 caliber bullets and, you know, 300 Win Mags, the 300 WSMs, they're effective at all those different you know, game species that Ben was just talking about, the elk, the moose, all that big game hunting, plenty, right? I mean, nobody's going to argue that they're not, but at the same time, who doesn't love that lower recoil and that flatter trajectory like a 6.5 can offer in those certain situations? So it's like, how do you meld the two together, right? How do you do that? Well, 270 has always been a great big game caliber, at least from a bullet diameter standpoint, but you didn't quite have the bullet weights to push it all the way up to like those 30 cal weights and have that downrange energy that we want. So, how do you blend all that together? Well, then we start thinking, well, those 277 diameter bullets or 6.8 millimeter bullets, well, what if we start stretching them out? What happens when we start making longer, heavier bullets, higher ballistic coefficients, drive that sectional density up, which is going to yield that additional penetration? Well, there's no bullets like that out there. And there's no cartridge that's capable of shooting that, or at least not a cartridge that in its standard chambering has a fast enough twist rate to stabilize a bullet like that. So all of a sudden it's, well, this doesn't exist, but we're the guys that can create it and bring that forward. So that's what we did with 6.8 Western. We started that development work all empirically, all in the computer, right? You're modeling, again, back to that engineer's dream, right? You're modeling it up, you're building it in three-dimensional space, you're not physically building samples yet. And then we have that back and forth. We have that back and forth with Ben and the product management team. We have that back and forth with the Browning Firearms and the Winchester Firearms team and say, hey, okay, here's what we're thinking now. Can you build a firearm platform around this? How do you make this fit? How do you make it work? And are we on a good path? And only then, once we all can come together and say, it's the right path, but can it be executed? Then we start cutting the steel, right? We start making tools. We start building the first parts in the plant.
And that process is a years-long process.
Much more in many instances, right. Yeah. I mean, a year is just, yeah, the year's about that front-end part. That's the discussion, that's the determination, that's all that empirical 3D modeling work. That's the first year. Right. Then you get into the second year where you're actually, like I said, cutting the steel, building the tooling, and actually building those first parts.
So what it feels a lot like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong or elaborate it if I'm going down the right path, is, prior to the 6.8 Western, there was a lot of give and take between caliber choices, right? It was, I want long range, but I don't want such a heavy caliber that's a heavy rifle or a high recoil rifle, but this bullet, in the 6.5 is a 140 grain, which isn't going to be enough at those distances. So it seems like there was a lot of give and take previously. And to me, and I know this from my firsthand experience in the field, the 6.8 Western has eliminated that give and take as much as it's ever been eliminated for satisfying multiple things in the mind of a long-range shooter or a hunter. I've been able to take this thing out in the field myself and put it to the test, which is the fun part. I mean, you guys got the really hard job, right? I've got the super easy job. But it truly does transcend in more ways than one, because I first and foremost am kind of like a Midwest whitetail hunter, just like a lot of us out there. And I've always looked for a rifle that, hey, this is going to work on whitetails. It's not going to be overkill. It's not going to blow the meat up. It's not going to destroy when I shoot it. It's going to be quick and efficient. But at the same time, I'm headed out to Montana or Colorado in a couple of weeks, and I want a gun to serve that purposes too, that purpose as well. So it does transcend, and that's what I feel like 6.8 Western has done. It's done away with the give and take, and it's allowed it to kind of transcend because of the options and the variability that you have.
Yeah, that's, from a marketing perspective, and we're looking at consumers like yourself, there's a lot of people out there that are, struggling with that, right? And so that's when we looked at Kyle and team and said, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is what people are looking for, particularly with like new cartridges, for instance. He mentioned 270 Win, that's historically killed a lot of critters, right? But when it was developed, long range shooting, long range hunting really wasn't in the picture, so to speak. So the twist rates of the rifles really weren't, conducive to spinning up real heavy bullets. But when we went to Kyle, he said, hey, if this is going to be something that we're going to build, it's got to have bullet weights that are traditional big game bullet weights. How can we do that? And I remember the conversation with Kyle. He's like, look, we could take 277 cal bullets and stretch those things out. Nobody's doing that today. There's not any other 277 cal heavy for caliber bullets because of the fact that the 270 Win and 270 WSM just can't spin them up. He's like, but if we work with Browning and we work with the Winchester repeating arms guys and figure out a way to get a rifle that's going to spin these things up, now all of a sudden we've got traditional big game bullet weights that can be spun up, highly accurate as well, that are going to shoot flat for big game critters, which I mean, it was pretty cool whenever he mentioned that, because you're like, you're right, Kyle. No one's doing that today, and why? Well, the why was it wasn't needed until now.
Right. So what do you say? Because there's going to be people out there that see a 277 cal bullet and they say, "What's a 270?" What do you say to people that think it's a 270?
Yeah, I mean, it's not the standard 270, right? And these bullets are substantially longer, substantially heavier, right? Those bullet weights are well up. And the key there, I used the term sectional density earlier. So sectional density is a relationship of weight and diameter of a projectile. And as a general rule, as sectional density goes up, penetration potential goes up, right? Because you have more mass for a given diameter. Well, there's never been 277 diameter bullets that have fit this realm that we're in right now, and it actually has eclipsed the traditional 30 cal bullets when it comes to sectional density. So we've got that penetration potential, and I think you got a chance to experience that firsthand.
I certainly did, and at long range too. I mean, for me, for a Midwest guy, long range, like 360 yards, I'm like, woo, look how far that thing is, right? A lot of those Western guys, that's a drop in the bucket at 360 yards. But you know, I did get to test it out west. I went to Colorado on an elk hunt, 360 yard shot on an elk. I mean, I think it was 18 seconds from start to finish, and the bullet did its job. I mean, I was amazed at the actual terminal ballistics and the damage that was done, how quick it was, how clean it was, how efficient it was. And then I got to test it out also on a whitetail in Nebraska this year. And, you know, same thing. That was actually completely the opposite. And that's, again, when I talk about this thing transcending, you know, 360 yards on an elk in Colorado, and I shot a whitetail literally at 20 yards with it. I mean, the deer was at like 20 yards.
That'll do it.
And so, so I got to see this thing, you know, across the spectrum of performance. And the performance was there on both shots, at 20 yards and at 360 on a big, thick-skinned game animal. So that's exciting from a hunter's point of view. But this isn't just for hunting. This is also long-range shooting, right?
Right. Yeah. So we'll have match-grade products as well, but you know, the long-range shooter, they're looking to shoot steel at 600 plus yards, right? And a big piece of that is it's got to be flat shooting. It's got to be accurate. You know, one of the key things that Kyle has mentioned earlier in the day here was, you know, hey, some of the first iterations of rifle design and bullet designs really weren't as accurate as we wanted them to be. You know, that's why it takes so long to get to something like this, because, you know, you can't just throw any 277 cal bullet in there and say, let's go. You know, it's got to be a lot of different features, benefits, dimensions that are going to get you there. And that's what we, you know, meticulously went through to kind of make 6.8 Western what it is.
And I think it also comes down to the partnership with Browning, right? And talking about the entire system. So you've got the ammunition side, but then you've also got the rifle side. So what's it like to walk through that process with Browning?
Yeah, so I mean, we can build ammo and we can shoot it out of a solid test barrel that can only be shot in a laboratory setting, but what good is that, right? I mean, that doesn't do anybody good. So working with those guys is key and instrumental in the whole thing, right? We've got to lay out this product in front of them and work back and forth. Okay, what about this length? What about this throat geometry? What about this twist rate? What about all of these different attributes that we feel are vital to make the ammo perform? But if we can't build a rifle platform that can shoot it, you know, nobody wins in that situation, right? So that's the key in the whole situation. You know, those guys are really instrumental to us in giving that feedback back and forth. I mean, some of the things like overall cartridge length. I mean, we worked back and forth with them, you know, for several iterations. You know, Ben can attest to this as well. We were back and forth trying to decide, you know, magazine fitment, or you know, we're pushing this and we're making this a little more challenging on magazine fitment for that given rifle platform, but they could do it. They agreed it was worth the additional steps to make sure that we weren't giving up any amount of performance, and that was the key, because like you said earlier, we were trying to take all these different cartridges that are good at a lot of things and take all the best features and get it into this one. We weren't going to, you know, shortchange ourselves in any way, or you know, take any short steps to not get to the perfect solution.
And that includes the whole system, right? So, you know, and I'm ignorant to this because I'm not a marketing guy and I am not an engineer by any means, trust me. The way that I put it to anybody that I've discussed it with so far is, to me, the 6.8 Western is like a 6.5 Creedmoor and a 270 short mag, which happened to be my previous favorite caliber. A 6.5 Creedmoor and a 270 short mag had a baby. That's how I like to look at it, right? So, as a marketing guy, and as, you know, somebody who has been involved with this from the get-go, all the way from, you know, the initial problem to the final solution, you know, what do you say to people? What makes this different? Like, if somebody says, well, I could shoot a 6.5 or I could shoot a 270 short mag, what makes this different? I mean, I know there's a lot of things, right? We start talking about being able to put it in short action rifles, so you're going to actually slim down the rifle size and the weight, etc. But I mean, in your mind, what really stands out with the 6.8?
You know, a lot of things work, right? So if you're saying I want the highest energy, you're probably going to go with 30 cal, or you can even go with 195 grain 30 cal bullets. You know, or if you want the flattest shooting, you're going to try to find something that's got really high muzzle velocity, right? What we tried with 6.8 Western was really to check multiple boxes there, and plenty of other cartridges check a lot of boxes as well. But like we talked about a little bit earlier, is just, you know, that person like yourself who's out there thinking, you know, I need something to shoot whitetail, but I also want this to be a very reliable, consistent big game cartridge as well. You know, certainly can you shoot something with a 6.5 Creedmoor or 6.5 PRC and kill big game with it? Yes, you can. But I do think that there are a lot of people who have some reservations about bullet weight, right? And so I think that's where, for me, it kind of, the 6.8 Western, I'm a Midwestern guy. I mean, I grew up hunting whitetail, mostly with slug guns, right? And just as I've gotten older, I've had a chance to shoot a lot more rifles, go out west, and I'm buying one of these immediately when they're there, because, you know, it does that for me. If I have an opportunity to hunt in the Midwest, it's perfect for whitetail. But when I go out west, I know I've got plenty of gun, plenty of bullet. You know, certainly I'd love to have a 6.5 Creedmoor as well. I probably will get one at some point. Even a 6.5 PRC, both great. But to me, those don't quite do both jobs for you. If you're looking for something for both jobs, 6.8 Western cuts it.
And that's what I touch on in my own experience, is something that I can do everything. I can't imagine a rifle hunting scenario that I would put myself in the next 30 years that the 6.8 Western wouldn't work in.
Yeah, and you think, you know, I say it wouldn't work, or to work in both. 30-06 works in both, right? 300 Win Mag works in both. Again, you keep going up higher with energy, it's gonna work for both. But there's some other trade-offs that you get. With that added energy, with that added velocity, you get added recoil. You know, by having high ballistic coefficient bullets, and I know it's like a pretty technical term, but what that allows you to do is the bullets are more efficiently traveling down range. So you get this long range velocity and energy with really a little less muzzle velocity, which is, you know, kind of creates more recoil on you. So Kyle had mentioned how less powder in there because of the way that the case is shaped. That's one way of getting recoil down, but another is just don't crank the muzzle velocity up as high. But most of the time when you don't have muzzle velocity, you don't have downrange energy. So there, again, there's a trade. But this is gonna have less recoil than or similar recoil than a 30-06. So very manageable, but certainly a lot, you know, more energy as you get out 500 yards and beyond, just because of that efficiency in which those bullets travel downrange.
Is that something that you guys are paying attention to throughout the entire process, is, you know, specifically to recoil? Okay, we got to make sure we get our recoil down to this certain point, or as we got to be under a 30-06, or we got to be, you know, how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like when we started the conversation, I said, hey, there was bullet points we started with. We had to do this and this and this, and those were all key attributes in the whole thing, right? I mean, if the recoil was unmanageable, that's not a successful cartridge for us, you know. There's big ultra magnum type cartridges out there that'll do all these things that Ben was just mentioned. Yeah, they're going to shoot flat because the muzzle velocities are 3,200 feet per second plus, and, you know, the bullet weights are heavy, and you got 90 grains of propellant in there. That's all fine, and those will check the box of, you know, the high energy, but, you know, they're not pleasant to shoot, right? They're not pleasant to shoot at all. And, you know, as we've all probably experienced, that firearm that you're comfortable with, you know, that one that you feel like you can get behind and lean into, and you're not worried about getting slapped in the face, but yet you know you can go put a nice precise shot on it. That's the most efficient rifle, right? That's the one you want to go shoot, and therefore your whole experience is going to be better.
I found that from the very first shot I put through the 6.8 Western. And like I said, I've been a 270 short mag guy for a long time. My first shot on the 6.8 Western, it was that moment of shock of like, wow, that's nice. You know, so I think to me that just shows that you guys truly have built a game changer here. You built the total package in the 6.8 Western. So let me be the first to say, if nobody's said it yet, congratulations to you guys, the Winchester team, the Browning team, everybody involved in the creation of the 6.8 Western. This caliber is a game-changing caliber. It's going to make some waves. If you guys want to learn more about it, tell us where we can find it.
You can go to winchester.com, you can go to browningammo.com, you can also go to browning.com and the Winchester repeating arms. All those websites, they'll show all the new products that we have for 2021 on the rifle side as well as the ammunition side.